All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Tennis Channel Inside In on the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Mitch Michals from the Santa Monica studio. This is always a treat, always a pleasure. Every time she comes in town, I have to track her down, and she's always receptive. But Andrea Petkovic, everyone's favorite tennis player turned announcer, is back in California, right from the Olympics. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you so much. You always track me down, even though I try and hide and seek. But you always seek me out. Good.
They're always, you're a popular person to have on this show for the takes, and then also the fashion outfits too, which we're seeing in the video side. But the other thing too is, and I know it's like not really telling things that people don't already know, but you call matches here. There's a tough break. There's a lot of just stuff you have to do beforehand. And I saw you literally sprinting down the hallway to get in a bathroom break. You called tennis for like over 4 hours today.
Yeah, I did. I called it for 4.5, maybe 5 hours. And we have the 90 seconds that the players sit down. That's the 90 seconds you have to run to the bathroom. So I have to sprint. It's good. I always get really fit at Tennis Channel. Yeah. Because I do that sprint a couple of times a day.
We were saying, like, get everybody out of the way, when their talent needs to use the bathroom. And also calling matches, again, you've had a bunch of different partners, but Mark Knowles, I just expect the worst now on court after that Paul Fritz match years ago.
It's so true. Every time Mark and I call a match, something absolutely tragic in the best possible way happens, not in a bad way. Today we thought it was going to be more dramatic because we had Bublik Shelton. Mm-hmm. I thought that was going to be really exciting, but Shelton was too good today. He made short process.
He was. We're certainly going to get to Canada in a little bit. I wanted to kind of recap back with some of the Olympic stuff. Also, your trip and your journey out there too, calling international matches, not quite all the way into the center of the Mecca Olympic Village and all that, but what was your experience like covering tennis at the Olympics?
It was really different this time. It was different because I was now part of the media, not part of the Olympic Village, which is different. It's also fun because everyone in media is excited about the Olympic Games. It's a big deal, not only for the athletes, but also for everyone covering it. And it's a lot of fun because we, too, on the media side, sometimes get complacent and take things for granted, but nobody takes the Olympic Games for granted. That was great. On the other hand, I did call many matches from the International Broadcast Center, the IBC, as they call it, which is not in Paris.
No.
It is an hour outside of Paris, so that was not as fun as being on site, but still it was a great experience being in a town where the Olympics are happening.
Do you feel like your national pride? I mean, everybody this time of year seems like this every 4 years, they feel like this is the time when it's the most national pride, where you're rooting for, in your case, all the German athletes. You see someone win a gold medal from your country, it's like this euphoric, uplifting feeling.
It really is. And I mean, we had this feeling 3 years ago in Tokyo in 2021 when Alexander Zverev won the gold medal, which was incredibly exciting. And it really propelled him into a different kind of stardom in Germany, winning that gold medal. And so that was really exciting. This year, the focus was more on Angelique Kerber just because she had announced right before the Olympic Games started that it was going to be her last tournament. So from a German perspective, and that's always beautiful to see, I think inside the tennis world, everyone appreciates Angie Kerber for what she's done. But sometimes on the bigger scale in Germany, people forgot how amazing and incredible her career was because Steffi Graf was right before her. So everyone just compared everything to Steffi. And so it was so nice. I get goosebumps when I think about it. It was so nice calling those matches, everyone tuning in and just wishing her the best because they, sometimes you start to appreciate things when they fade away.
What a great run for her. Again, it was on clay, not known as her surface, given all that she's been through just to get back after having a kid and at her age, the miles that she's put on her tennis body. But to go out fighting the way she did and to lose to the eventual champion, I thought it was just a phenomenal bookend to a career that, as years go by, I mean, it's going to be more and more appreciated because what she did, winning those 3 Grand Slams, year-end number 1, is an elite company.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure, 100% sure she's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
110%.
Yeah, 110%. I was like, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure she's. And I think when that happens, people back in Germany will also understand even more what she actually has done for not only German tennis, but German sports in general, having somebody compete at one of the most challenging sports out there at the very top is incredible. And you said it exactly right. She went out the way she had contested her entire career. She was fighting till the last point. She was running for everything. She was sweating. She was crying. It was incredible. The last match she played against Zhang Qinwen, I was calling it for German TV, and I don't think you heard me say a word for the last 3 games. I was like half crying, half amazed at what she was doing still at that age, and against one of the up-and-coming stars who would end up winning the gold medal. It was just so incredible.
Phenomenal stuff. You mentioned it too. I mean, it's one of the highlights of the tournament. I know Djokovic on the men's side, but Zhang Qinwen winning that gold medal. China had never had a gold medal, and never had a medalist in tennis before. She wins the gold. She beats Iga in the semifinals, Vekic in the final. This was somebody on a lot of people's radar, Andrea, for a long time as the next player up. Seems like this was the moment, the jumping off moment. She gets that gold medal. She does it playing tremendous tennis. There's a lot to like about what she did and what she's capable of going forward.
I really think so, and you can't forget she saved match point against Emma Navarro in the round of 16. We can talk about that too. Yeah, that match was interesting, and you know what? I think she reached the Australian Open final earlier this year. Everyone thought this was going to be the jumping off point, and then she struggled after that, which is normal. There was such a huge hype around her back in China. She really became a star overnight, playing the final at the Australian Open in the 10-year anniversary since Na Li had won it. So it was a lot of things coming together. And I think just now she's settled into what people expect of her, into being a top 10 player, into being a big champion. And she showed her class. It was incredible. She really upped her game match in, match out, and played the best match in the final and against Iga probably, which was incredible.
She's a real fighter out there is what we're seeing. In the Iga match, she won in straights. That second set, she was down by a lot, came all the way back to win it. Really great. And also you mentioned the stardom thing. Everybody, and yourself included, you get to a point where more people notice you. You're kind of getting name recognition. It's hard for anyone to really replicate or understand what she specifically went through, being from a country like China and having that run seemingly overnight where it was a double-digit seed into a major final. So handling that, and you can even talk to that a little more, handling the fame side of things as you become a pro and become better is a tough task.
Yeah, I really think so. I've never been at that stage that Qinwen is now, but just also watching her closely, and she has that charisma, right? She has something around her that makes her into a star. She is not afraid of the camera. She speaks very well. She's very well spoken. She's smart, and as you mentioned, she's a fierce competitor. And I think these two things combined really propel somebody into a different level. And we saw it with Naomi Osaka, similar, where she's so soft-spoken and shy and interesting, and then on the court she's one of the fiercest competitors. And I think these two things combined really make superstars. And so I'm sure it was really difficult for her. I called her matches at the Olympic Games. It was full of Chinese people, and they were yelling at her. And on the one hand, it's uplifting. On the other hand, it's a lot of expectations coming from a lot of people from your whole entire country. And her being able to handle that was very impressive.
So next time you interview her, it's probably going to be karaoke. That's like her thing.
Yes, she loves karaoke.
I know. That was impressive, as was, have to give a shout-out, silver medalist Donna Vekic, the run she made to the final. The Kostuk match was incredible. We were glued to it over here, just two players, hitting winner after winner. But Donna Vekic proving, again, not to take that step back, makes that Wimbledon run, gets to the semis. And then we wonder what's going to happen, how she's going to manage the surface change, fights her way tooth and nail to the final, runs out of steam then. But for Donna Vekic, it was another great result. It's another example of how hard she works and how much she battles, much like Qinwen, how she fights out there to get as far as she possibly can.
She really does. And I always, when I was still playing, I would always seek out Donna as practice partners just because she... the way she goes about her practices is exactly the same way she goes about her matches. When you play a practice set with her, she will try everything to win. And that's always how I like to practice as well. So I think you can really see that. And I talked to Pam Shriver yesterday, and she told me that she really put an emphasis, or they as a team put an emphasis on mindset with Donna, because she's such a perfectionist. She gets down on herself, and we've seen her really bounce back from difficult moments. You mentioned the Kostyuk match where both players had match points. There were matches and moments at Wimbledon when she beat Paula Badosa in a match that started at 11:30 a.m. and ended at 7:30 p.m. because of the rain. So you can see that the focus on mindset has really helped her, and that she's gone through difficult moments and came out on top of them. And now semi-finalist in Wimbledon, finalist at the Olympic Games. That's some incredible track record, and I'm really excited to see, because I think on the quicker US Open hard courts, I really think if she stays healthy and fit, because she's played a lot of tennis, I really think she can do some damage.
Seems healthy right now, given where she's been, given that she had the injury history. It's been a couple-year climb to get back to this elite level and maybe get to the best point in her career. Shout out to Pam Shriver doing another tremendous work there. And the bronze medalist was Iga Swiatek, which she's been pretty open about, which is one of the things that, I think people are liking to see her starting to open up a little more. She was not satisfied with bronze. It took her a couple of days, as you know, as the competitive juices wear off a little bit. Okay, I can appreciate what I did. It wasn't the results she looked for, but still a medal for Poland in tennis, which hasn't happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so beautiful to see when they came on the podium. Iga was beaming. She was honestly happy, genuinely happy. And I think for her, it was probably the most difficult going into this Olympic Games. Nobody in Poland has ever won a tennis medal before. And Iga was the clear favorite, playing on her favorite surface, on her favorite court at Philippe Chatrier, where she had such a great run just earlier this year at Roland Garros. So I think there were a lot of expectations placed on her. And, Poland doesn't really have competitive Billie Jean King Cup matches, because they are not in that group where you play the best countries in the world. And that's where you get a glimpse of what it might feel like to play the Olympic Games. So it was a new situation for Iga. And it was really beautiful to see that despite that loss, that perhaps surprising loss, she was still so happy. And it was so nice to see that moment of the trio on the podium with Donna, Qinwen, and Iga, everyone looking so happy with their medal. It was really special.
It certainly was. Poland having a little bit of a bump with Magdalena and Frech, who made a final recently, but Iga being the star there. There's just a different type of Olympic pressure, too. I think that's part of it, and not having that traditional clay buildup where she's able to round herself into form. It's tough. There is, no shame in losing to Qinwen, but still got the bronze medal, and it's tough to get yourself back onto the court. The last thing on women's singles, though. Interesting one for the American women, would you say?
Yeah, interesting. How was it taken here in the States?
It was taken with some heat, I would say, but I would stress individuality. 3 different incidents happened. I think they're all unique.
Yes.
Starting with, I think, what was, maybe not egregious at all, but how Coco Gauff handled the Vekic point, which was not the reason she lost. We went over the rule a couple weeks ago. It's unfortunately a bad break. I wouldn't say she got cheated or anything. Yeah. That's something I think she knows she needs to work on. Like, I need to just move on a little bit. And you can speak to that a little bit. Like, it's tough to overcome whether it's a bad call or a bad break in a tennis match.
I think that rule specifically has caused problems over and over and over again.
So would you say just automatic replay if there's any doubt?
I think either way, but I think you have to make a clear ruling, because right now the ruling is, you've talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but right now the ruling is it's up to the chair umpire. And it's hard. It's hard. The call comes, the opponent
because he did get it right, but yes, that's been messed up a lot too.
A lot, exactly. So I think in that moment, Coco is feeling all the moments of the matches before where it got messed up, because this is the one thing that gets messed up all the time. And I think either you need to allow a replay, and then Coco would have moved on because she would have seen I was wrong. Or you have to make it an automatic replay no matter what when this happens, because that's the one rule where I see constantly problems and trouble. So I think that's for her, and I think there was a lot going on. I think the reason it's not a coincidence all of this is happening at the Olympic Games, because the pressure is different. It's not an individual pressure, it's the pressure of your teammates, of a country, possibly other athletes sitting in the in the stands, and all of this adds to a different component of pressure, and I think that's why we saw these outbursts. Let's go to the next one. What is the next one?
Yeah, the next one would be Danielle Collins. It was pretty, I don't want to say on brand. I don't think it was much more. It was just the comment after to Iga, you don't have to be fake about it when I wish you well. So there was that one, and then the third one was probably the most egregious. I don't think it was anything too personal, but the Emma Navarro basically saying to Qinwen, I don't respect you as a competitor.
Yeah, that was
a little aggressive. I get it. Like, heated things happen in the field of play, and you're not always proud of it, which is probably why I wouldn't mic these players up live, which is a different discussion. But I do think that there was some incidents that were a little out of, I don't want to say line, out of pocket a little bit. But you just move on and learn from them and go from there.
Yeah, I think I'm still viewing a lot of these incidents as a player. I've been retired for 2 years, but I can still feel myself go into the player personality. So I kind of understand all of it because I had these moments. I will say for Emma Navarro, I think I know because I saw it with Donna, who got a bit annoyed with Qinwen in the final as well. And I realized what I think was going on. And just a very pragmatic, very German approach to this. What I think happened is Qinwen has changed her ball toss, right? If you remember at the Australian Open, she had that quirk where she almost turned the hand completely around. And now she's not turning it completely around, but still turning it around a little bit. And I think they are in the transition of getting rid of that quirk. So she has been tossing up balls over and over again. And I think it's just a transitional period for her right now. And it's probably felt as an opponent because I know I've been in the situation. It felt like she's messing with you.
Well, that's another one that could be a rule at some point that's been much discussed. How many ball tosses should be allowed if it keeps going? No, I think, look, I don't think it was too egregious. I heard Mary Carrillo, who I'm a fan of too, say these American girls are kind of running wild at the Olympics. So
I love that about running wild. Well, you know what? Standing up for yourself, good for you, even when you're maybe not in the right all the time.
Also, shout out to, before I forget, the Italian doubles team of Jasmine Paolini and Sara Errani. Paolini's just on a tear, having her best year, doing it in doubles too. Errani completes the golden doubles slam by winning this Olympics. So someone that's still involved in the game has still made the most out of it and is still a very elite doubles player.
Very elite doubles player. And I think sometimes people underestimate how talented she is just because she is a more defensively minded player when we remember her as a singles player where she would track down a lot of balls, defend really well. And so I think people underestimate how good she actually is, and in doubles she can really show that side of herself, her skill set at the net and her feel for the lobs. And you know what was really interesting? In the beginning of the year, they said we are playing together because we want to win the gold medal, and putting those expectations on themselves from the very beginning of the year and then holding up to the pressure was really, really impressive.
Are you jealous of Jasmine Paolini's just ability to be positive all
I'm
the
so
time?
jealous. You know, when you get annoyed with somebody because they do it so well and so right. I at Wimbledon, I called that semifinal between her and Donna, and she was just, come on, forza, forza, forza. And I was like, amazing. If I had 10% of that, I would have had a much better career.
It's incredible. More with Andrea Petkovic here on Tennis Channel Inside In, recapping Olympics, talking summer hard courts. I did have one more Olympic story, and I want to go to the video wall because I need your opinion on these two.
Our tennis favorite rom-com.
So for those out there listening or watching, you got Siniakova and Tomas Machac, Czech doubles team. They won the gold medal. They are in a relationship. They had reports that they had broken up beforehand. They win. It's emotional. Some kisses were shared. Now people are wondering. They're saying, hey, we're not going to tell you guys. So just your assessment of what we saw, this tennis rom-com, as you said, in Czechia.
I loved it. It was my favorite moment. So they played in the first round, Alexander Zverev and Laura Siegemund. So we did that match for German TV, and they were in the best communication I've ever seen. And we knew they were broken up. And I said at one point, I didn't want to go into the private lives too much, but I said at one point, this is really amazing how well they are communicating with each other and how in harmony they seem to be. So whatever is happening, this is my favorite story of the Olympics, I think. And we have Novak Djokovic, who is maybe the most amazing story of all the Olympic games, not only in tennis, but still. I am a sucker for rom-coms, and this just caught my heart. And more power to them, no matter what they decide to do. I love them together. I think they're incredibly cute, whether that is as friends or as lovers. I leave it up to them.
Couple things. One being she's the best doubles player in the world right now.
100%.
Right? Like it's insane. Also in that first photo, his shorts were shorter than hers if you go back to it. So
I love that. I've been saying this for months, ever since he shot up on the scene and has been playing so well this season. I've been saying more players on the ATP tour should wear their shorts like Tomas Machac. It was very hot in Paris. He kept rolling them up. Yes, that's all I'm saying is yes.
Well, that was an interesting take on everything for sure. So we'll monitor that, and we'll see if the storyline gods give us some more. Before we go to the summer hard courts, though, I did want to circle back to Wimbledon because you were there. You were covering the tournament. You also played in the Legends event, and one of the players there was Ash Barty.
Yes.
Back on court. So what was that experience like? She made her broadcasting debut. You and, was it Rubarikova?
Yeah, correct.
Played against her and Casey Delacqua. What was that experience like getting back on court with the Wimbledon champ?
Well, first of all, I have played on every single center court in the world except for Wimbledon. And then they schedule our Legends match on center court after I had been broadcasting for 6 hours. I was not able to warm up. And I walked into the locker room to change clothes and take my makeup off, my TV makeup. They're like, Andrea, you're expected on center court. I was like, excuse me? So mind you, I was more nervous for this match than I've ever been in my professional career, just because of the lack of preparation. And it was really great. Ash and Casey were amazing. We played a good doubles. And we both, Magda, my partner, and me, we commented on it. We said if Ash practiced a month, we think she could do third round at Wimbledon. If she practiced 3 months, we thought she could really play for the title. That's how good she still is. That's how fit she still is, and how well she hits the ball. So yeah, I don't think she wants to, but there is still some real good quality going on in that little body of hers.
She looked the same, which is clear even after having a kid. And then also we know that she's just a natural athlete. It hasn't taken her long to adjust. So it's cool to see. And yeah, you can cross another thing off your bucket list. Not much left.
Now I have played, I think, on all center courts in the world. Yeah.
Well, getting into this current season now, it's tough to make the transition. Some players are going to wait another week till Cincinnati. Others have already hit the ground running or didn't play the Olympics at all. But we go to Canada, 2 tours on different cities, Montreal, Toronto, staggered, with the guys in Montreal this year and the women in Toronto. But as we look to the storylines, we look to these players that are coming in, I get the sense that we're going to kind of judge them a little differently. Sinner and Sabalenka, 2 of the premier players, favorites this week, didn't play the Olympics, maybe coming a little rested. Do you see it that way? And do you see some of these Olympic athletes maybe having to adjust a little bit?
Well, that's a very good question. I was wondering how Tommy Paul would fare today, for example, who just came off his bronze medal doubles match with Taylor Fritz. And he did okay. You could see that he needed some time to adjust, but he did okay. I think it is going to be very taxing on the player's body, especially those who have played the Olympics. This is the only sport where we change surfaces. It is so challenging by itself already. And this year, they've done hard, clay, grass, clay, hard. Within a span of 6 months. This is really hard, and I just hope that we won't see any injuries. I think that's my biggest hope, that players will feel somewhat fine. I don't think they will be at 100% physically, but you don't need to be at 100% physically, because everyone else will not be at 100% either.
Right. I watched Sabalenka last week, and I thought she got what she kind of needed out of that first tournament back. I know she didn't win it, and it's unfortunate, but had a couple matches, looked okay, had some rust to work out. I think she's coming in locked into this tournament. And that's kind of where I'm going to be judging Jannik Sinner, because I think Sinner is someone that has had some things, had the tonsillitis, has had some issues, Wimbledon, of course. I do feel like he won't take as much time to adjust, because he usually just comes out playing well and has put in a lot of time that we haven't seen.
Right. And this was his breakthrough. Last year in Toronto, he won his first Masters 1000 title, and that's where things really took off for him. It seems like that's when he seemed all of a sudden invincible at times, and he struggled with with some physical issues lately. But I do think that Sabalenka and Sinner should go in as favorites. Somewhat favorites is always dangerous to say, but just because they had that extra time on hard courts and also to rest, which is really important. And I'm excited to see how Jannik will go about defending his title, even though it's in a different city.
That's a good point, not going right back to the city that you won in. On the men's side, Sinner is the favorite by clear margins. It's Zverev and Medvedev. Zverev slightly ahead of Medvedev. So two different players. Zverev has had the major success, hasn't ended well a lot in these majors, but Medvedev's going back to where it all began for him. This is like going home. It's like going away to just visit someone. Now you're back home.
Yeah, when Medvedev steps on the hard court, it seems like he becomes a different player. He's just like all the tension in his body melts, and he seems to be so comfortable. And I have to say, Alexander Zverev, in the first 3 rounds of Wimbledon, I've never seen him play this well. I thought, really honestly, he's going to win Wimbledon. He looked the strongest of all. Then he had this really nasty fall. He injured his knee a bit. And ever since then, he's been struggling physically a bit. He had some dizziness in Hamburg. Now at the Olympic Games, he was struggling with the heat. He has diabetes. So there are a lot of issues coming together.
He's tough to play. I mean, he's playing really well.
He's playing really well, but he was just struggling with some physical issues. So he went back home to take a few tests, to take a few blood tests and see how he's feeling. So that's going to be interesting to see with him whether he can be 100% physically, because I think his tennis has really gotten to another level this season. And I think he is a different player, and I think he goes differently about the major tournaments. And I think he really believes he can be a contender.
Well, I was looking at the other men in this field. Again, an opportunity like we saw in D.C. with Sebastian Corda winning and then Paul Bados on the women's side, but men that could step up, whether it's an American like Tommy Paul, Taylor Fritz, Ben Shelton in the match you called today. The Americans could use this bump to kind of get to that level. It's an opportunity. Of those names, or is there anybody else you think could make a move on the men's side in Canada?
I think Ben Shelton looked really good today. I was very impressed because I think with Ben Shelton, I called a lot of his matches, and the one thing that drives me insane is when he becomes very wild and has no patience. And he can afford to some extent to do that because he has this big weapon of a serve. But today he was very patient. He built the point up. He brought the intensity, point in, point out. And that's always something I look forward to, because in Wimbledon, he played really well, but he needed 5 sets in every single match. So by the time he played Jannik Sinner, he was worn out already. He had already been on court for 25 hours, basically. And if he can minimize that, because playing Grand Slam tournaments is a different animal. It's 2 weeks. It's best of 5 for the men. It's really challenging. So you need to maintain and manage your energies. And I think Ben looked really, really good today, the way he went about it. Because it's not easy playing Bublik. I mean, he's a wild card, this one.
Doubles partners in this tournament.
Yes, my favorite agent of chaos, as I framed it.
That was it's a good way to put it. I'm also curious about Holger, too, because, the coaching breakup happened again, and he's looking for another opportunity to put his name. I mean, he really believes that he belongs at the very top of the sport. Results haven't happened this year. With no Alcaraz and Djokovic, you think this could be an opportunity. It took him 3 sets against Bautista Agut, who was the lucky loser in the draw, but if he can put it together, the weapons in the game is there.
The weapons in the game is there, and I think we've been saying it for years. It feels that that Holger Rune should be one of the top stars. He should be a top 5 player. With him, I feel like he's lacking similar, also a bit of discipline, and it doesn't mean discipline in terms of practicing. It means discipline in terms of structure in the game and percentage tennis. We saw Novak Djokovic now in the final at the Olympic Games. He's the perfection of percentage tennis, which doesn't mean it's boring. When he needed to in the tiebreak, he got those highlight reel shots. He got the little bit of extra. You can have both.
When he needs a big serve and just an easy point, he can just do that.
Exactly. And then when he needs to, he can also hit a crazy, great running forehand and a winner. And that's what I mean. And I feel sometimes with Holger, he wants the highlight reel, but he doesn't want the cheap points. And he needs both in order to be a contender for these big ones. But he knows he won a Masters title before in Paris. He knows how that goes. And so I think he just needs to find a bit of more structure, and it will be fine for him.
The last thing on the men, I had a question for you. We talked about the 2 ends of it, right? 2 ends of the spectrum. Jasmine Paolini, super positive. I wanted to ask you about Andrei Rublev, because since he won the Madrid Masters, he's 7-7 on the year. And I looked up on Tennis Abstract, shout out to that site. the average ranking of the losses is 72.
Oh.
So I know he's been temperamental and by all accounts a great guy. Everybody likes him. But what advice would you give to a player that's going through it and trying to find the right footing specifically on the mental side?
Well, with Andre, it really hurts me because you can see that he is hurting himself, right? You can see that there is a lot of pain on the inside, that he is a lot of self-loathing and just annoyance with himself. And it pains me to watch it, really, to be honest. And in Madrid, and I just wish he could tap into that energy. In Madrid, he was very sick. I called all the matches. He was really, really, really sick, which took away the energy from the self-loathing, right? Because he was so focused on trying to get through the matches that he didn't have time to use it up for getting angry and getting annoyed. And he won the tournament. He played the best tennis he's played all season. And I just wish if he can't do it or if he can't manage it by himself, that he will get help to help him out with this obvious vicious circle that he's found himself in. And I was a very emotional player myself. I know how that feels. I was very big on the self-loathing myself, so maybe that's why I also feel with him. But sometimes you need a little bit of outside help, and you can't do everything by yourself, even though you're a tennis player and you think you should.
Well, we hope he gets there. Really, obviously, one of the better guys in tennis, so hope to see that happen. On the women's front, we mentioned it, Sabalenka favored in this tournament slightly over Coco Gauff. Really curious to see how Coco comes back to it. Wasn't obviously a great ending at the Olympics or Wimbledon, but here she is, summer hard courts where she dominated last year, won the U.S. Open. Does she feel comfort, or do you think maybe she feels some pressure too?
I hope it's the comfort over the pressure. I do think she will feel some pressure because there are a lot of points to defend for her. Just remember, one Washington, one Cincinnati, final of Montreal last year for the ladies, and then won the US Open. A lot of points to defend. So I do think there will be some pressure. I just hope that she can pair the pressure with the good memories she had from last year, how she felt and how she played, and tap into that energy. And just remember, last year, she lost in the first round of Wimbledon. Everyone was questioning her, what's the form of Coco? And she came back and went on an absolute tear. So she has it within herself to turn everything around. But it will be definitely a difficult moment for her.
The forehand's going to be the hot button talking point. And yes, it's manageable now. It doesn't need to be fixed. Will it be? It's a big time project if it does. I think we can kind of all agree in the tennis community that she's in her best position to manage it on these hard courts.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a proponent. I know sometimes people laugh at me when I say it. I don't think it is necessarily a bad shot because I practiced with her a lot when I was still playing. And the most uncomfortable thing about playing Coco Gauff is the backhand comes at you so fast and flat, and then the forehand jumps on you. It's kind of slow, but it jumps on you and you have to lean on it. And the difference of these two paces and these two ground strokes is really difficult to manage. What can't happen is that she gets it in her head and starts to miss, right? That can't happen. But if she can just, like last year, make it frequently and use it to open the court and then use the backhand to attack, it's very difficult to play her. And so I really think, you might call me crazy, but I don't think it is necessarily a bad shot. It just needs to be managed, as you said. And last year she did manage, and she only lost one match in the entire U.S. series. So that's pretty good in my book, to be honest.
It was that Pegula, right? Who ended up, who's back healthy, and I hope she can make a run too. Somebody to watch out for. Also, I had checked the score, so right as we're recording this, Naomi Osaka and Shibori Osaka's up a break in the first set there. Looks like she's got the first set in control. She was somebody that, after how close she came to beating Iga at Roland Garros, we were all kind of waiting for this point, right? Naomi back on hard courts could be a real factor.
Definitely. I mean, I think everyone has been talking about it already. I want to say since Miami, where she looked really good already. She beat Svitolina there in a really impressive 2-set match, then lost to Garcia. But ever since then, I've been kind of waiting for her to break through. And then we went on the surfaces she hates most in the world, clay and grass. But it played, as you said, one of the best matches I've seen her play since her comeback against Iga was just a point away. So I think she will go very confidently into this U.S. series and into the hard court summer. I think somebody to definitely keep on your...
When we get away from Clay, and it's not Iga with the stranglehold, Iga's still at the top when she returns. But you have Coco won the U.S. Open. Sabalenka's won a couple Aussies. I don't think Rybakina will be bad. Pegulas played well at Osaka. This is maybe the most open time of the year for the women's field.
I really hope so. I am always excited. You know, I will tell you one anecdote at the French Open. A few journalists asked me, can we ask you some question about the state of women's tennis? I was like, sure. The first question was, do you think it's boring that Iga Swiatek is dominating the French Open? I gave my answer. 2 weeks later in Wimbledon, when Iga was out, again, the same journalist asked me, like, hey, can we ask you some questions? I was like, yeah, sure. And then they asked me, like, isn't it weird that the 7th year in a row it will be a new Wimbledon champion?
Okay,
and I looked at them. I was like, are you serious right now?
What do you want?
What do you want? You were the same guys who asked me 2 weeks ago whether it's boring that Iga is winning. You pick a lane. I don't care which one, but pick one, and I'll give you my answers to it. So personally, I always like when there is excitement and when you don't know what's going to happen. But I also really enjoy players going on a tear and dominating the whole thing. I guess I just love tennis, so I don't mind who wins. I just enjoy the emotions.
Well, that's the perfect attitude to have. Wrapping up with Andrea Petkovic here on Tennis Channel Inside In. We've gave you a thorough breakdown of the Olympics and North American hardcourt swing, but right now I want to get your thoughts on the other endeavor in your life. So if you want to look at what that screen says, if you can read out what the first line of that is that you wrote.
Oh, that's so good. Who wrote that?
I don't know. I think it says watching the Olympic Games is the most fun a girl can have without taking her clothes off.
That's so good. I'm a great writer. No, I'm just kidding because
That's an
obviously,
quote,
I stole that quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. I wish I was that good of a writer. But that's my blog. That's my Substack. You can subscribe to it. I write every Friday. I send out a newsletter. And last week's newsletter was currently watching the Olympic Games. What about you?
So the Substack writing that you've been doing, and it's been great to have your thoughts and outlining everything, especially getting in the mindset of a tennis player. But how does that differentiate? How does that feed a different creative side than the actual like writing a novel portion of what you've done?
So it's a lot easier on one hand and so much harder in a sense because I underestimated that you have to come up with a topic every Friday, right? And it takes 2-3 hours to write a thing like this. So that's been mind-consuming, energy-consuming, but it's been a lot of fun as well. And then on the other hand, it's a little bit easier because I write about things that I think about all week long. It's tennis, it's competing, it's performing under pressure. What does it take to perform under pressure? All these things. So I think about them constantly anyway. So it's on the other hand, it's easy. Whereas in a novel, you have to kind of go out of your comfort zone and into matters that you're not as proficient in as in tennis. But it's been hard and fun at the same time.
I saw the clip of you, or saw the photos from you in Germany at like was it a Q&A about the book? Is it weird that people might know you now just as an author and not a tennis player?
It's really strange. So normally I still get a good portion of tennis fans and some of the literary fans, let's say. But I had one reading in Hamburg, and I write for a newspaper, which is the equivalent of the New Yorker, where I have a column about arts and leisure. And so that newspaper is published in Hamburg, the Zeit. And it was the first reading I had. It was fully sold out, and it was mostly literary audience. And it was so confusing to me because I would tell my tennis jokes and they wouldn't land. And then I told a few literary things, and people were into it. And I was like, oh, this is the first time I have an audience who doesn't remember I used to be a tennis player. Yeah. So it was a little bit strange, but it's nice to gain another following as well.
They're like, this tall, fit writer. Who is this? What's her background?
Why does she have muscles? What is wrong with these writers? It's not the writers I used to know.
No, definitely not. Lastly, you've been a blast as always. What's next on the docket, or what's not next? Because it feels like it's broadcasting, it's writing. What do the next couple months look like for you?
So my next couple of months are Cincinnati. I'm here now in LA doing Montreal, Toronto. Then I'm going to Cincinnati from the side. I will do the qualifying as a mentor for the German Tennis Federation.
Some good time for them, actually.
Yes.
Eva Lise has been doing very well.
Very well, yes.
It's
very
good.
well. She's in the quarters right now in Hamburg, so that's exciting. And then I'm going to do some broadcasting for the US Open. And what else? I'm doing Laver Cup, which is because it's in Germany. It's going to be very exciting. It's in Berlin. And then I have kept my November and December open because I want to start to write a third book.
Oh, wow. We'll be on the
Yes.
lookout for that for sure, especially given your new literary audience too. So
Yes,
we'll have
all
to-
the 5 of them.
They're not listening to this, so we'll have to get them the podcast some other way. Andrea Petkovic, always a blast. Really appreciate you making time, knowing how busy you are. Really enjoy our chats. Thanks for coming on the podcast. You're one of the best guests here. Thanks for coming on Inside
Thank
In.
you, Mitch. You say that to everyone, but I'll take it as if you didn't.
I only mean it to a few, but thank you.